Hey guys, welcome to Feel Better. My name is Steven, and in today's video, we're going to create this animated diagram and landscape section in Premiere Pro and in Photoshop. So let's start. So as always, I want to thank my Patreons for making this channel possible. If you want to join this amazing group of people that are supporting Show It Better and also getting access to project files and video files, then click the link in the description. Also, I wanted to remind you that there will be free animated assets and a paid version of animated assets in the link in the description in case you want to use them in your own diagrams. If not, then let's start. So I started by sketching out a diagram of a garden that I wanted to design, and I did this with the spline tool. It was a very easy and fast process. I put it in isometric mode and then I exported it as a PDF and imported it into Photoshop. As soon as I had done this, I created a new layer and painted it all white. All the background was white, and I minimized a little bit of the diagram so I just have a little bit of white space breathing around and everything wouldn't be so squished. I also imported a texture, a grass texture, and modified it just a little bit so I wouldn't have any imperfections in the textures, like you see the shadows or anything that's too repetitive. I didn't want that, so with the clone stamp tool, I modified it, then I pasted it various times, and by selecting only the space that I wanted to fill out, I went and created a mask to let it reveal. After this, I started painting outside of the margins so the grass could have that effect of that depth, of that 3D effect. To make this in the best way possible, I modified the brush dynamics, the scattering, and the smoothing so it could just look a little bit more real, a little bit more imperfected. Overall, this was a very easy process, and this was done with grass brushes. I think you guys can find free grass brushes online. If not, then I have some grass brushes in the description. After having done this, I also added a slight shadow to the edges of the whole grass sections, the grass layers, just so it would look a little bit more realistic and have a little bit of difference between the outside and the inside. I also went to Maya.dk to import some trees that I wanted to import in my diagrams, my aerial diagrams, and in my section. Again, if you want some free sites to download trees, there will be a link in the video description and a link on the top of this video, just so you can see all of the websites that are available for you to download free trees. This website is very, very cool. This is one of the websites that I had mentioned in the video before, and it has a ton of selection of high quality trees that you can use for your renders. As soon as I was done importing these trees into the diagram, I started creating the diagram style. So I created the section on top and the diagram in the bottom. I imported again another grass texture just so it could work as a base for the grass that I was going to do in my section, and I also started to paint out the grass just a little bit so it could have a little bit more imperfection, and you could see that it was a realistic grass from afar. Then I opened Premiere Pro. As you open Premiere Pro, you want to create a new project. All the default settings, you want to just leave them as it is and name your project. After this, you go to File and Create New Sequence, and you want to create a new sequence that has the settings of 1920 by 1080. And this is going to create a kind of like a new canvas. After this, you're going to export the image that you just made in Photoshop, and after you click on the image, on like the layer of the image, you're going to be able to resize it. So you want to resize it in a way that everything is visible in the whole project view. If there are black spots, black margins outside, then you can just create a new layer and create a color matte, and in the background there will be a white or different colors that you can put on, and I would just put this in the background just so it just blends in seamlessly. If you want to have green screen people, you can just go to YouTube and look for green screen people, download the video, and then after that you import it into your Premiere Pro file. You want to go to effects. This is very important. You're going to go into your effects and search for color key, and you want to drag this effect on top of your layer. and then you want to key out the green, right? So with the drop layer, you just select the green, and all the green is going to disappear. You maybe want to feather out a little bit, and after this, you just want to resize it and place it on top of your animation. This is one way that you can get free, high quality, or maybe not so high quality, but free animated assets. If not, what I did was go into Lumion and kind of independently just go inside of each person, animate it, and make my own assets. If you don't have this, or if you don't want to do this, then I created a free set of animated human assets for you guys to download. There will be a free version and also a paid version in the link in the description. So after you do this, you want to start importing all of your assets. The assets that I'm using here are all the ones that I have created from Lumion. So these are the ones that you can get when you download the assets in the description. As soon as you import them into Premiere Pro, you just want to resize them. You want to make sure they're in scale, and you want to make sure the time frames are the same as the time frames in the whole image. Maybe you would want to zoom in into the whole canvas and to the whole viewport if there's any imperfection, if there's anything that you want to mask out. After this, I'm just going to speed it up so you guys can see all of the trees, all the different people, all the different birds that I imported. The good thing about this is that it works more or less like Photoshop, meaning that there are a ton of layers or layer panels where you can just put one image on top of the other, or in this case, one video asset on top of the other. You just want to make sure that each video asset is in the right scale. And the good thing about this is that you don't have to color key, you don't have to do any effect, you just import it and it is ready to go. I also have some assets of people in bicycles, people running. So this is interesting if you want to make it more animated, much more dynamic. And this was the first result that I got. I didn't like it as much. I knew that I had much more work to do, but it was just getting there. So I went back into my Photoshop file and started adding much more detail, much more trees in the background, much more textures. So as you guys are going to see in this time lapse, I'm going to add a concrete texture. So this concrete texture can simulate the concrete part of the whole garden, if you may. And I also exported a plan view of the whole geometry of the park, of the garden, just so it could add a little bit more interest into the image. It could just have a much better aesthetic. I also added some textures. These textures were using the blending options and the pattern overlay options inside of Photoshop. As you guys can see, these are techniques that we have used in the channel from years past. So if you guys want to learn much more of these techniques, then just look for the videos in the description. There will be a ton of them and a ton of different techniques that you can use. I also, started playing around with many more textures, with much more geometry around the whole image, because I knew that this was kind of like the most important thing, the thing that gave it the most flow to the image. I added a texture to the diagram, to the bird's eye view as well. I saved it and then I went back into Premiere, and this is how it was looking right now. I didn't like it that much, to be honest, because I thought that I needed more people. So I was going to try to test out to paste some static people in the Photoshop file and leave the animated people in Premiere Pro. So I started importing much more people from the people brushes that we have. I think everyone has them by now. These are free brushes that you can get, obviously also on the Show a Better resource store, if you can call it like that. So I just painted people in a black silhouette, and I just modified a little few textures here and there just so it could just look a little bit more interesting. I saved it once again as a JPEG, and this was the final result. This was something that I really loved. If I would have dedicated a little bit more time, it would look a little bit better, but still, I really like the result. So what did you guys think? This was the final result. I really liked the result. This was something that I hadn't enjoyed in a while as much as I did with this animated image. I know that there are a ton of other things that you can do with these animated assets, a ton of other diagrams, but I just wanted to start exploring the first ones that I thought were going to be the coolest and also the most simple to do as well. Remember that if you want to join our Patreon and have access to these files, then click the link in the description, or if you just want to have access to the files, then there will also be a link in the description. That was our video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in a next one. All right, bye.